The outline that we'll have for you is a little bit about the history of the faith, the teachings, Baha'i community, and hopefully some time for the question and answers. As with previous religions of God, when there is a decline in the moral and spiritual conduct of the people, there is a need for renewal of the spirituality and morality of people to a higher and nobler level of conduct. And this was the case in Persia, in Iran in 1844, where there was a lot of fanaticism, ignorance, oppression. They're still going, yeah, and so it starts in 1844 because somebody by name Bab, the Bab, which means gate in Arabic, he proclaimed his twofold mission. Am I loud enough? You guys hear me? Louder, okay. So Bab, he declared his twofold mission. One, that he was an independent manifestation of God. He came with teachings like advancement of women, science, education, respect for environment. And the other station or mission he had was that he was the forerunner of somebody who was going to be greater than himself, promised one of all previous religions. And as you can imagine, this caused a lot of opposition in Iran at that time. And the followers of Babis, they call it, 20,000 of them were killed. And Bab himself was tortured and imprisoned and brutally executed in 1850 at age 31. And his remains, his earthly remains were moved from place to place by his followers, and after 60 years it was buried on Mount Carmel in Haifa, which is currently called Israel. At that time was Palestine. And it's one of our holy places that, you know, we go and visit. I'm sure some of you have seen it, maybe. So after Bab, Baha'u'llah, which means the glory of God, he was born in 1817. Last year was his 200 years of anniversary of his celebration of his birthday. He becomes the leader of the Babi movement. So he was one of the followers of Bab, and for that reason he also he came actually, Baha'u'llah came from a very wealthy family. His father was a minister, but you know, he gives up all the status and the luxury life, and he gets imprisoned in a place called Siyah Chal, or Black Pit, in Tehran. And the Shah, Nasrin Shah at that time, he banished, he wanted to get rid of Baha'u'llah. I don't know why they didn't kill him, but they banished him from Tehran to Baghdad, and he was in house arrest for 10 years until 1863, where he proclaimed his mission as the promised one that Bab had foretold in the past, and also the promised one of all the previous religions. So as the fame of Baha'u'llah increases in Baghdad, the Sultan of Ottoman Empire banishes him once more to Turkey. You know, those names are probably Istanbul and Edirne right now. And finally, he's sent to the prison city of Akka. And he dies in 1892. So Baha'u'llah was in exile, so to speak, for 40 years, and during his time he wrote many letters and writings, and the letters were to the leaders of the world, such as Queen Victoria, Pope Pius X, Napoleon III, and he basically urged them to pursue justice and disarmament, and he proclaimed his mission, and ask them to come together into a commonwealth of nations. And so Baha'u'llah dies in 1892 in Bashiri, that's also in Akka. This is his shrine in Bashiri, and it's the most holy place for us Baha'is all over the world. So this was the history. So what are the teachings of Baha'u'llah? Baha'u'llah says God is one. You can call it different name, Allah, Khuda, Gud, but it's only one God, and all religions come from the same God. God is limitless, like this ocean, unknowable essence. He's all-loving, all-kind, and he says in a quotation that God, the unknowable essence, the divine being, is immensely exalted beyond any human attribute. No human heart can fathom can comprehend its fathomless mystery. So how can we know God? He says that the only way we can know God is through his manifestations, and the manifestations of God. And throughout the history, God has repeatedly manifested himself in different places, different times, with teachings that are specific to the needs of the people at the time it has appeared. So this was the story, this was the story of Krishna, Abraham, Moses, Zoroaster, Buddha, Jesus, as you can see, Muhammad, and now is the story of the Bab and Baha'u'llah. Baha'u'llah says that the divine manifestation or divine revelation is continuous and progressive. And he doesn't claim he's the last one either. So, and we believe that he says that the teachings, the spiritual teachings are the same, but the social teachings differs each time. Baha'u'llah also says a beautiful thing. He says, they all abide in the same tabernacle. They soar in the same heaven, are seated upon the same throne. They utter the same speech and proclaim the same faith. So with each coming of these manifestations of God, they release a spiritual energy into human affairs, and that can advance human civilization. There will be a surge in science, in art, culture, and everything. As I was preparing this talk, I came across a very interesting historic fact. I thought for us, this audience is interesting to know that the first interfaith movement happened in Chicago in 1893, where I think this gathering was called the Parliament of World Religions. They came together, and basically these religious leaders came together to promote unity and brotherhood. It was the first, this first interfaith movement gave rise to many other ones, and later on gave rise to the study of comparative religions. And also for me, it's a testimony that the unity of religions that they were promoting, and Baha'u'llah was proclaimed 30 years before, was needed for humanity today. And another interesting fact, as a Baha'i, this was the first time Baha'i Faith was publicly announced in the United States by actually Reverend Henry Jessup, not a Baha'i. He wrote a paper about Baha'i Faith. Baha'u'llah says, "O people, consort with the followers of all religions in a spirit of friendliness and fellowship." The other teaching of Baha'u'llah, which is maybe the main teaching, the core teaching of Baha'i Faith, all of the other teachings evolve around that, is that unity of mankind. So Baha'u'llah says that beyond the differences in our language, skin color, race, class, religion, we are all diverse members of one human family. He says you are like flowers of one garden, fruits of one tree, leaves of one branch, and he says, deal one with another in utmost friendliness and fellowship. So we believe that in the evolutionary process of humankind, we have passed the infancy, we have passed the childhood, and we are in that turbulent age of adolescence. Right, and at the threshold maybe of maturity. So we are the world is becoming smaller because of the scientific and technological advances we have had, but also unfortunately because of a lot of terrible things that have happened, like Holocaust, like genocide, like world wars, and people have immigrated from place to place, and mingling of races are happening, and so the unity of mankind is sort of coming together, but what we call an integrative and a disintegrative processes come together, those two forces, and get us there. So as Baha'is, we don't believe that it's just the unity of mankind is not just necessary, but inevitable. Also, people might say this is a utopic thought, it's another prophetic cycle, something that Baha'u'llah just claimed, but Baha'u'llah says that unity of mankind, this earth, and you see all the people on it, he says it's the last and highest stage of evolution of mankind on this planet. And it says that it does imply an organic change in the current society we have, a deep social change that subordinates the national interest to the need of a unifying world. He said, let him not glory in that he loves his country, let him glory in this, that he loves his kind. In other places, he says, the earth is one country and mankind is citizens. So with that, I'll give your floor to Tanya to talk about other teachings. Thank you.
So,
yeah.
The first teaching that I'm going to talk about is the independent investigation of truth. So Baha'u'llah teaches us that we should not blindly follow others or blindly follow our ancestors, but that we should acquire knowledge independently and see through our own eyes and not through the eyes of others. And the second one is compulsory universal education. The Baha'i Faith teaches that every child should have not only secular education, but also spiritual education. And it's emphasized that girls should be educated. So much so that if a family had one boy and one girl, it's preferable to send the daughter to school because women are the first educators of children. And it's important that the next generation is educated. And Baha'u'llah says that we should regard man as a mine rich in gems of inestimable value, and that education alone can cause it to reveal its treasures and enable mankind to benefit therefrom. The third teaching is the equality of men and women. And the Baha'i Faith says that men and women have always been and will always be equal in the sight of God, and that men and women are like two wings of a bird. Each wing needs to be equally strong in order for the bird to soar. The next teaching is the abolition of all prejudice, whether that be social, racial, gender, religious, anything that allows people to consider themselves superior to other people is a prejudice. And Abdu'l-Baha, who's the son of Baha'u'llah, when he was released from prison in Akka, came to North America in 1912. And when he came to North America, he said to the early American Baha'i believers that racial prejudice was the most challenging issue for America. And he taught through example, and he made sure that the Baha'i community from its inception was integrated with black and white members, and that the Baha'is always had their feast, which is our holy day. We would have our feasts together in any community events. It was always integrated, and as Cornel West says, he says that the Baha'i community was integrated before the YMCA and even the Communist Party. So it's very important. The next teaching is that science and religion must agree, that there's only one reality, and true science and true religion must be in harmony. And that science without religion leads to materialism, and that civilizations based solely on materialistic beliefs and end up having moral issues and moral problems. And that also, conversely, religion without science leads to superstition, and that we need to use our reasoning powers to understand the truths of religion. The next teaching is a universal auxiliary language. So in order to be unified and better understand and communicate with each other, we need to have an auxiliary language. And that doesn't mean that existing natural languages would be suppressed, but we need to understand each other. And Baha'i Faith teaches unity and diversity, and also that cultural heterogeneity is compatible with unity. The next teaching is the elimination of extremes of poverty and wealth. Poverty demoralizes people, and wealth overburdens an individual. And the Baha'i teachings teach that there is an inherent moral dimension to the generation, distribution, and utilization of wealth and resources, which needs to be reflected in more equitable economic structures and through voluntary individual behavior. And this problem is never solved without the transformation of the human heart. And the last teaching that I'm going to talk about is the Baha'i Faith teaches that we should have institution of a world tribunal for the adjudication of disputes between nations. And Baha'u'llah says, in a quote, that the well-being of mankind, its peace and security are unattainable unless and until its unity is firmly established.
Thank you. So the Baha'i community is worldwide, members from all races, nations, classes, and we celebrate that, of course. We don't have any churches or congregations, but the Baha'i community is governed by local, national, and international administrative organs. And this is Universal House of Justice is the highest organ, administrative organ for Baha'is around the world. It's again on Mount Carmel in Israel. The reason we don't have church maybe is because Baha'u'llah says that the spiritual growth of each individual is primarily a responsibility of each individual to engage itself with the Word of God. And that's the reason, yes. We have houses of worship or Baha'i temples, again on local, national, and continental levels. There are 8 of them. This one is in the United States, in Chicago, in Wilmette. I had the opportunity to be there last week with my daughter doing college tour, so it was very nice to see it again. It has, that's the place where everybody is welcome, all religious faith groups can go there and recite the Word of God. Has 9 entrances symbolizing the 9 major religions of the world. It has a dome, and at the top, inside, if you go, it says, "Oh God, the most glorious," something in Arabic. Okay. And this one, it was the last. This house of worship is in Chile. It was finished last year, I think October 2017. I really like the style. It reflects the culture where they build these houses of worship. We have, every 19 days, we have what we call a 19-day feast, where the Baha'is come together, say prayers, and have social gathering. We have spiritual education for children, teens, and adults. And this is an example of junior youth, I think, class in Bashiri in India. Okay, I think that was the last one. Okay, that's it. Thanks.